photos.
I think I need a picture of it, misrepresenting myself.
I actually just sent a new one to John because I was like, I can't. It was like, yeah, I'm like, you can tell.
Yeah.
222.
A little prayer.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Taves, and I'm the event coordinator here at McNally Robertson Booksellers. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that McNally Robertson is located here on Treaty 1 territory. That's the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples in the homeland of the Métis Nation. In addition, McNally Robertson Booksellers itself rests on the land once occupied by the Métis community of Roostertown. We have the incredible pleasure of gathering here tonight, both in person and virtually, to celebrate the launch of another sumptuously beautiful and incredibly emotionally impactful book by David A. Robertson, The Song That Called the Mountain, to which you have all. We're always so incredibly delighted to be able to celebrate David in any shape or form. And we just celebrated the launch of the latest book of the Memekwesewak just a little while ago. And it's so wonderful to be back here to celebrate his pictorial work, which is some of the favorite work that he does published, beloved by children, beloved by teachers, and beloved by everybody here at the store. We have two special guests here tonight, one of whom you'll meet in just a moment. But this event is hosted by Ace Burpee of Virgin Radio, so you'll be hearing from him in just a moment as he introduces David. First, you have to put up with me going over a few housekeeping notes. So just a few quick notes about the way the evening's going to run. There's going to be a reading from David, and then there'll be a conversation hosted by Ace, taking place just to my left. Following that, there'll be an opportunity for you folks to ask questions. If you're physically located here in the space, please feel free to just put up your hand and I will run over to you with a microphone, which is not a comment on your ability to project your voice. It just ensures that everybody watching at home can hear your question. If you happen to be one of those folks watching at home, please feel free to just write any questions you might have in the chat and we will put them to David as time permits. Following this event, there will be a signing. All I'll ask you right now is just to remain in your place for just a few moments before the signing takes place so we can safely transport David over to the table, after which you can all wander over and have books signed. There's also a representative from the publisher of this book, Tundra Books, who would love to get a picture of all you folks holding a copy of the book as well. So if you do hang out, we will distribute copies for a photo opportunity at the close of the event. Thank you all for your patience. That is obviously more than enough for me, so thank you all for that. Right now, it is my immense pleasure to introduce your host for this evening. But before I do, I will invite everybody standing outside if you would like to come in. Yeah, there are plenty of seats just over to the side here as well. And there is an aisle in the middle, so you will not have to push past anyone. Your host for this evening, Ace Burpee, is a host on 103.1 Virgin Radio here in Winnipeg. He's originally from Cooks Creek, Manitoba, and graces us with his presence tonight. Please join me in welcoming him.
Two. 1, 2, 2, 2, 2. I mean, I can project if we need to. Side note, I don't know, like John may have the most beautiful speaking voice in the history of the world. That's one. 2 is thank you all for coming and hello to people joining us virtually. Thank you for being here. 3, I was so stoked. I saw this email and I guess a couple months ago, and it was, can you come host this book launch for David A. Robertson, of whom it's awkward to say because he's right beside me, but I'm a massive fan, and I was so honored. So thank you very, very much. Very cool. So stoked. Also, if you, so like in terms of like, let's just pretend like we're all like super close and like really good friends and like maybe even all grew up together, because if ever, like I'm the safest, as in if you've never publicly asked a question or put up your hand or whatever, like if you think that's really off brand for yourself, tonight might be your night because we got you. Fair?
Yeah.
Right, like, so afterwards, like, I have lots of questions and I could talk to David for hours, but if you're like, you know what? Maybe I am going to, step outside my comfort zone a bit and ask a question, by all means, we got you tonight. So, side note also on John. I wrote it down. Described this book as, I'm stealing this, bro, sumptuously beautiful. Anyone catch that? Another sumptuously beautiful. That was amazing, John. That's a good line. This book is amazing and I love it. I love everything about it. So honored that you are all with us. Come on in. There's an aisle in the middle. We're all chill. We're all chill. Honored that you are with us and so excited to hear from the author, David A. Robertson. Thank you.
Thank you, Ace. Thank you very much. First of all, if you excuse my voice, I've had getting over a little bit of cold last week and haven't gotten it back yet, but I just tell John, I sound a little bit like John now.
That's the goal.
I'm giving him a run for his money, you know. And every time I say, I tell John, I want to like call me every night and read me something, just to put me to sleep in the nicest possible way. Read anything to me, John. But anyway, thanks for coming. Thanks Ace for being the host. I'm also a big fan of Ace and his community work. He's like a big treasure here in Winnipeg, and I'm really honored to have him hosting this event. And of course, my buddy Bob, who you probably know as well, and he's been a really good friend of mine for 12 years now. So thanks Bob for coming as well. And yeah, I just want to talk maybe a little bit about the book. And first of all, I'm doing a couple more things, but I don't want to talk too much about the book because I want to preemptively answer your questions as well. So, but thank you all for coming as well. And then also, McNally, I remember I self-published it. Don't ever look for it. I self-published a book about 23 years ago, and I was nobody. Never still I don't know what they but but they put out all the stops, you know, they developed media and they put me out at the Prairie restaurant and a bunch of people came. I was like, oh, maybe I could actually do this. Like, it was this crazy crowd that was like, you know, who am I? And McNally's has always been great to local authors in that way. And they've always been great to me. And anyway, this is the greatest bookstore in the world. Always said that. So thanks to you guys for hosting this lunch and all my lunches since I started writing. So that's them down. And then and also Maya McKibbin, who's, you know, I've done 3 picture books now. And the first 2 with Judy Fleck, who's you know, she's also I think one of the best we have in Canada. And then Maya McKibbin is illustrated this book. Maya McKibbin is from BC. BC seems to have a lot of great illustrators. Natasha Donovan, Julie Fleck, Maya McKibbin. Maya did such an incredible job with this book. And you know, the picture books, I mean, there's a writer, the illustrator does way more work. So she did an amazing job illustrating this book. And some things I think we'll talk about the art as well. In their decisions and how they depicted the characters. Great, amazing work, beautiful work. So anyway, I also want to mention, I really like, you know, when I started doing this about 12, 13 years ago, you know, I do a lot of school visits. I do lots of them every year. I do probably 100 or 150 every year. And when I first started doing these school visits and public events, we never did land developments. They were never done. Now we do them all the time now. I just feel like it's such a great indicator of the progress we've made. And it's really encouraging to see that. Just much as it is to see how when I go to schools now, every kid's learning about residential schools. We never did that 12, 13 years ago. So I feel like sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit for the work that we're doing. And the last few books of my catalog, the books that I've written, they've all been like land-based books. And I feel like more and more I appreciate that reconciliation is not just about the trauma, that's a big part of it, but it's also about celebration of relationship and culture, community. And not only relationship with people, but relationships with the land. And I think that's really important to mention that as well. So, and that's why this book and a lot of On the Trapline, they've all been books that are focused on the land, our relationships to it, and the beautiful things that happen on within it. So anyway, so that's just quickly probably what I want to mention. But I'm going to be looking at a minute or two, but I want to tell you a little bit where it came from. What I've been doing the last little while is I've been looking at traditional stories, and you know, the Barren Grounds and Memekwesewak are all based on constellation stories, and stories about, you know, the Big Dipper, we call it the Memekwesewak, the Fisher Star constellation, the Big Bear constellation, adapting them, and then also looking at like classic literature that I love growing up, and seeing how I could like kind of combine the two and make something new out of it. And so with this book, I've been thinking about the little people a lot, and so in Cree culture and a lot of different cultures, in Indigenous cultures, otherwise, like little people, there's two humanoid races on this planet, like human beings and little people, and so I've been learning a lot of those little people stories, and they're amazing stories. I also remember my dad, when a few years ago, told me a story about how he saw little people when he lived on the trap line. They're coming up this canoe and they kind of sail by and disappear into this like waterfall. And I feel like there's such beautiful stories. And at the same time, I was thinking about how I was going to do it and tell my own kind of little people story. I was also reading Maurice Sendak and Outside Over There. So a lot of people know where the wild things are. I don't know if you read Outside Over There. I was talking to these kids about it a month or so ago in rural Manitoba. And I was telling them, oh, this book is really inspired by Outside Over There. And the librarian was like, oh, we have that book, we should read it to them, and then read your book. So I was reading Outside Over There to the kids, and it's such a creepy book, and it's pretty scary. And so I read it to these, like, you know, grade 2, 3, 4 kids, and I was about halfway through the librarian was like, so, but it was kind of a finding way to pay homage to this book that I loved when I was a kid, and also incorporating it with some of the traditional stories that I've learned about little people and trying to make something new out of it. So, so anyway, so that's what the song I called Home came from, and I'm really proud of it. You know, it's my third picture book, and it's been a long time in the making, and I thought what I'd do some interview too and to talk about it. I'm really excited as well because I'm a terrible singer, and I stupidly wrote 2 songs for the book. I thought as it was going to be published, I thought, wait a minute, when I do readings, I was going to have to sing, and I can't do that. So I'm going to figure something out. But tonight I have my friend Bob who's going to sing the songs in the book, and I'll do the reading part. So I'm going to go up there to read, and then Bob will come up here. I'll be ready to go.
Thank you, Bob. All right. Wait, I have 2 books. Okay. Choose one.
I know. Okay, here we go. Oh, you know what? I wish you'll buy one. I think so. I wish that I had brought a projector to show you the illustrations better. I'll hold it up, but I'll hold it up. Okay, great, yeah. They're really good. So yeah. You got one already? Awesome. Okay, here we go. So this is the song that called Home. I was just referencing earlier my author picture and how in it I look a lot younger. Well, I was a lot younger than I am. And anyway, about age, I have to take my glasses off to read now, so that's a problem. Well, it's just part of age. Okay, here we go. Oh, what's your name? Dylan?
Dylan's gonna
I
help.
introduced you at Nordic.
Hey, I remember you. Thanks for coming. Dylan, everybody. He's gonna help out. Thanks, Dylan. Okay, here we go. First page, got it? All right. On a clear day in the middle of summer, Lauren and her little brother James went on a trip to the land with their Moshom. It was a long journey, and when they arrived, Moshom fell asleep. While Moshom dreamed his dreams, Lauren's stomach began to rumble. She imagined a big fish they could all share and took James into the canoe to catch their supper. But Lauren hadn't paddled the canoe herself before, so they drifted farther and farther from the shore. In the middle of the lake, James's fishing hook dove underneath the surface while Lauren stirred the water to attract fish. Around them, tiny circles got bigger and bigger. Suddenly, the circles rolled into waves that crashed against the canoe, rocking it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The children tumbled overboard, and the swirling water pulled them in. You see a real cool illustration here for a second. Lauren looked around for James, but didn't see him until he cried out. The Memekwesewak were taking him away across the lake and through a waterfall. Lauren chased after them. Behind the waterfall, she found a portal to another place, a place she could not yet see, a place that made her whole body tremble. But she knew James needed her, so she took a deep breath in, then let it out, and made herself calm. She squeezed between rocks, swam down a long, dark tunnel, and went where the water went, right into the other side. Lauren followed the bends and curves of the watery pathway, searching for James. She swam past thick green forest under vast blue skies. Then she came to an island where she saw figures moving in a round dance and a fire with flames reaching to the stars. And there was James dancing his best, joined together with all the rest. Lauren tried to pull him away, but instead found herself licking hands with the Memekwesewak. She began to move with the others, right beside her little brother. They shuffled their feet, swung their arms, and danced along to the Memekwesewak song.
What a bright, beautiful summer day, hi-yo, hi-yo, hey, 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 hey. We don't want you to ever go hi-yo, hey, 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 hey. We want you to always stay, hey, hey, hey. What a beautiful place to call your home, hi-yo, hey, 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 hey. Hey, yo, hey, hey, hey.
They danced faster and faster for minutes that turned into hours, that turned into days. They danced so long that Lauren forgot why she had come at all. But then they heard another song that sounded like distant thunder. Lauren stopped dancing to listen, and so too did James. The children could feel the drum in their chests, just like the beat of their hearts. The Memekwesewak let go of their hands and plunged into the water from the land. Lauren and James danced once more toward the song, moving their feet to its familiar rhythm. They danced past thick green forest under vast blue skies. Up they climbed towards the portal, then in. They squeezed between rocks, swam down a long, dark tunnel, and went where the water went, right into the other side. Lauren and James swam to Moshom, who was waiting at the shore, singing and playing his drum, hoping that his grandchildren would one day come. That night, they danced around a fire,
to the song that had called them home.
Come back, the sun is falling, the soft white light will help you see. Come back, the moon is calling, how beautiful the night can be. Hey, come back. You've been gone so long, what places have you come to roam? Come back. Hear my welcome song, my beating drum will guide you home. Hey yo, hey yo, hey yo.
Hey, thank you very much. Thanks for walking that. I just thought it would be helpful to read the author's note, and then we'll do our little Q&A. So Indigenous communities across Turtle Island have stories about the Memekwesewak, or little people. They are one of two humanoid races on Mother Earth, the other being humans like you and me. Memekwesewak live between rocks in the rapids, amid the trees of the land that provides us with life. They are mischievous. It is said that one of their favorite things to do is to crawl out of the rocks and capsize canoes. Children are far more likely to see them. Memekwesewak have a soft spot for children that will help them when they are in trouble or sad. One day, when my father was a boy living on the trapline, he saw a small canoe occupied by Memekwesewak. The canoe moved across the water toward a waterfall. It didn't stop. It went through the waterfall and suddenly disappeared. I've heard stories of elders who leave miniature clothing out on their porch at night for the Memekwesewak, and in the morning discover the clothing is gone. If you're ever out on the land, keep your eyes open, because you may just see the Memekwesewak. Well, thank you.
Well, that was awesome, and well, great job. You're awesome, Maurice. So great. And thank you very much. That was.
Thank you.
Do you want to know about a DM involving tonight? It's good.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Well, Dylan's mom sent me a DM this afternoon. It's like, because I posted that I was going to be here.
Yeah.
And she's like, that's my son's favorite author. So boom. And now you held the book at a book launch. Like that's legendary. Legendary. So I have lots of questions. If you feel you would like to ask one, by all means, we will come to you. You can raise your hand. If you're feeling a bit like, let someone else start it, I'll start it. So lots of questions. One would be, we sort of touched on this a little bit when I arrived, but so when Lauren has to go through all that sort of turmoil, and I'm assuming there's a bit of fear and trepidation because she is searching for her little brother. Okay, she goes through that, and I gotta say, I felt a little almost claustrophobic. Okay, what she was going through, but then on the way back, very specifically, you say they danced on their way back and things like that. So what was that? What was ideally? What would I get from that?
Well, you know what, one of the things I think I like about the literature is the interpretation of reader, for sure, you know, so this is not prescriptive, but like, for me when I wrote it, one of the things I found in my own journey with mental health is like facing the fear. And so, you know, when I was younger, well, younger, like 10 years ago, and I was really afraid to do something, I would shy away from it. And then the fear gets bigger. It's like that being a wolf thing, right?
Right.
And if you starve the wolf, you do things that it tells you can't do. So as time has gone, and I'm still not great at it, but as time has gone by, I found that, you know, I always have that kind of monster in my ear going, you can't do that. You can't do that. Like, I went to Hong Kong a couple weeks ago, And I was like, can't go to Hong Kong, you know, like, there's so many things that could go wrong, it was so far away from home. And, but, you know, you get on a plane, you get to Hong Kong, and it's not so scary. And so, it wasn't Hong Kong that was scary, it was like being away from home, you know? And so you find out when you face those fears, next time they're not so scary. And, so I think that's what I was trying to get at is, you know, trying to set an example with kids with literature that, you know, things can be scary. There can be obstacles that you feel like you can't overcome, but you can. And then the next time you go down that road, it's a little easier to get through. You know, so it is a little bit, you know, subtly maybe about anxiety and mental health. And it's something I read a lot about. So I think it's naturally something I wanted to include in this story.
I mean, you faced, realistically, like I'll bet you, 23 years ago, you were talking about you self-published the book and held the thing here. But like, I bet for years, like the fear of putting something out into the world in terms of art or your feelings or your own writing, like that's what holds back a lot of art and people's dreams and passions is simply that fear of putting something out or putting themselves out in the world.
Yeah, I mean, now as a I don't know, veteran writer, like I work with a lot of younger writers, and especially like writing my own imprint now with Penguin, working with a lot of young and emerging writers, and as you know, I see that fear in sharing work or doing public readings, and you know, one of the very simple advice I give them is when you do it once, the next time it's not so bad. But you have to go out there and do it. Right? When you go out there and do it, find out next time you're gonna be okay.
And it never needs to go perfectly. Perfection
Never
is
does.
severely overrated, and perfection is slowly dying, which is good. I'm serious. What is your, it seems like mental health, weaving as many references or whatever you can with, in terms of mental health and things, but also, so that's prevalent, but also the concept of home, right? And I think that however you grew up, whatever you, however you identify, I think there's a nice reminder on the word home. And so even in the title, like the song that called them home, you instantly, I don't know, get a feeling of warmth and like that's calling me a bit, the subject of home.
Yeah. Like I think over the years it's become so much more profound for me, like what home means. Not like a physical place.
No.
You know.
Yeah.
But like my mom's in like this, and my mom is home to me, you know, and going to the traveling with my dad, that was home to me. And you know, like going home with my kids, like my kids are there, and that's home, you know. So there's so many, but home is love, you know. Home is where you feel like comfortable, accepted, unconditional, and where you feel belonging. And that could be, it isn't even a place, it could be just like this profound kind of emotion feeling that gives you that kind of comfort. You know, I feel like that's something that I need more and more to me in my work.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I ran this one past you before this event started, so I want to make sure that there was nothing insensitive about it and that it was deliberate. But so this is in reference to this, you'll have to see the characters to understand fully my question, but it seemed very deliberate the way that the two characters were drawn. Can you touch on that a bit? And that's Maya, which is it's so awesome. I respect it enormously.
Yeah. This is all Maya, and I just met Maya in working on this book, and I got to choose, you know, out of probably 30 or 40 illustrators. Maya was the one that stuck out, and so I worked with Maya. And very early on, they sent drafts of the characters and how they envisioned them. And so I think we have, when you picture maybe like a girl character and a boy character, we maybe have an idea what that might look like. There's like, you know, I think there's like, we assign, I know, certain things according to gender. And we wanted to like say that there's not just one body type, there's not just one appearance, there's not just one. And so Maya just created, you know, Lauren is like a bigger girl and has short hair, and then James in this book has long, beautiful hair and smaller guy, and you know, slighter frame. And we just wanted to show that there's not one appearance, there's not one, you know, way to look. You know, there's, you know, a girl, boy, like however you identify, it's all good, you know. And we want people to feel welcome in that way. And I feel like reading this book, I think will help do that maybe a little bit, you know, because everyone does look the same way.
Yeah, I noticed it instantly, and I was like, if this is what I think it is, this is awesome.
Yeah, it was very deliberate.
Yeah, it's so good,
It's all Maya, like you know,
it's so good.
I was like, Maya. Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, well then, was this on purpose as well, or am I reading too much into this? So Lauren, goes out in the canoe with her little brother.
Yeah.
Go catch a fish. It specifically said, because she had never paddled a canoe by herself before. What was that on, was that intentional as well?
Yeah, I think it's like she done it with her grandpa,
Yes,
but she's trying to like model that maybe, like what's the model of her, trying to do what her grandpa had done. And didn't, you know, maybe didn't know exactly how to do it, wasn't comfortable doing it. But she went anyway, but yeah, I think it's like a way for me to show like an experience might lead to something, but you know, like she went out and tried it anyway, and she wanted to like, you know, feed her family, you know, so yeah.
so awesome. Okay, so a few questions in. Does anyone would anyone like to ask a question? Yeah, love it. That is
In there.
one of the best hand raises of all time. Like that thing shot up. That's great.
What I wanted to know is if the little people were gonna be nice and good, or if they just wanted the kids to stay there.
I'll be honest, I thought of that as well, because after I read it, then I read it's so, what's your name? Xander, great question. Because I read what are the things called at the end, like the author's notes or whatever,
Yeah.
right? And so then I went back and I was like, because I wasn't certain whether they were a little too mischievous or that's very good. So touch on that, great question.
It's a great question. You know, I felt like there needed to be a little bit of like, a little bit of drama in the story.
Yeah.
So, you know, they are a little mischievous creatures. I feel like if it was an adult, it would have turned out not so well.
Yeah.
You know, but I think it was like them wanting to be around the kids, you know, and so maybe went about it maybe not the best way, but I feel like there was like good intentions with what they were doing, but they were also like very playful, mischievous characters. So in my mind, they want you know to dance with these kids and play with these kids, you know, because they're like childlike themselves. And but I feel like in not seeing it from their perspective, you don't see that in them. Like you kind of get it from the kids from your perspective. So you don't really know what's going on. So I feel it adds a little bit of drama to the story. So hopefully, there's a fine line between you don't want to scare somebody, but you want to be a little bit like, oh, what's going to happen? So that's kind of what I was trying to do. That. If you read outside over there, it feels maybe a little more malicious, but like that's kind of like it's still a little storyline where like these goblins, you take this little baby and you play with like an ice baby, and then the ice baby starts to like very horrifyingly melt, you know, and so the big sister has to go like backwards through a window to get to the Goblin Land, and they're all like dancing naked and like it's really messed up. It's like I find like the line that's like not so messed up. That's what I was trying to do.
It's awesome. Good job, Andrew. And also just that, you're talking about like, did they want to stay and keep dancing or whatever? I think, one thing to remember that I was reminded of through this book is, when we should, as people, stop dancing? Never. Never. That's awesome. All right, yo.
I kind of agree on that, the character design, because I really agree on this.
Yeah.
I think that's a good design, because, I mean, has nobody looked closely at these? Look at the design. I don't understand. If I tried drawing that, like, it wouldn't take me 5 weeks or so. It'd take me like 1,000 years, like,
Give or take, yeah.
I'd not be able to do that, so, pretty talented.
Awesome.
I feel the same way, it would have taken me probably like a year to draw that, but Maya did that in a day. So, but it was interesting with the character designs. There's a lot of different ways that the Memekwesewak little people are interpreted. So I've seen them drawn in so many different ways. And so there's some creepier ways and some like more, more kind of like less creepier ways. We try to, again, I think, it's funny because my dad always talked about balance, too. So I always think about balance, like what's the balance between like creepy, not so creepy. And so that's what we kind of came up with. So Maya had like, I think 4 or 5 different like, versions of like how they might look. And so we kind of went in the middle a little bit.
I mean, if you look at Robert Munch, when he made it look like that, I mean, they made those creatures way more creepy.
Hey, my puddle. Hey, my puddle?
No, I mean,
Well, my puddle scared
I
me.
mean the other.
I didn't bathe in that, that's why. There we go.
You should get a job in PR for Tundra Books. I'm serious. Like, people will listen to your thoughts on books. I'm telling you the truth. You know what else is just crossed, but like, how ridiculously cool is it to take stories from when you were a child, like talking about whether it's the little people or little things that you would never have known at the time, that you could incorporate that into something later in life. Like, that is so ridiculously cool.
Yeah, it's cool to be able to do that, I guess, like,
It's amazing.
yeah, I remember that's the story I read with my mom when I was younger, and yeah, to think that I could like, read it just like, a couple years ago and think like, I'm gonna write my own version of this.
Right.
And then, because Sendak, he's my favorite fiction book writer, so anything he's done, I just love, and, but it's interesting with like Memekwesewak, Chronicles of Narnia is a series I read when I was a kid, and the Library and Wardrobe, and then I kind of wrote my own version of it, the variant.
Yeah, I think there's something to this, like, this happens, like, because we're influenced by, like, things that raised us in terms of pop culture, whether it's music and I do think that I bet you still have a lot to explore on trying, like, sort of your own version of stories you grew up on and things you can take from your own life. And like, it seems like the amount of potential there is enormous.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting. You reference it, I do like that you reference these either other authors or series, right? Because that is what shapes you.
Yeah, I think that it's important, I think, to like acknowledge that like art is so influential.
Yeah.
And if I didn't like outwardly say that Sendak is someone who like, taught me a lot about writing, I would be remiss probably,
Right.
And so, as C.S. Lewis or, with my older works, Salinger or Copeland or, they taught me, and so
cool.
So it's like, it's cool to just like write something that says like, hey, like whether, his family or whatever ever reads it, Sendak is like, I can write this book and be like, thank you for writing books, and this is like a tribute in a way, like, you know, I like that, I like when you do that.
So do I, a lot, yes.
Okay, a few years ago, you came to Stony Mountain to a book club for inmates, and with John K. Sampson, and you had just the respect of everybody there, and I just have to mention that. But what where I'm going is, you know, literature is such a grounding and a connecting and a bringing together of of people. And has there been a defining moment for you, you know, where literature was, wow, that's, you know, that really, like, that could have been accomplished with another venue or with another avenue. And like at another piece, Ace, you might know this from media, but I remember reading about a Saskatchewan school board that like it was like you against, and I thought, wow, how is this going to end? And and that story. So when I think about you, I think of those two things. But could you speak to one, you know, something really impactful for you on the literature front?
You know, I'm lucky that it is like an everyday thing almost, you know. And I do a lot of school visits. I usually do 1 or 2 a day. And, you know, I do a presentation and I speak to an entire school board, and there's like, you know, 4,000 kids on the other side of my monitor. And it's all there because of a story. You know, they're all there because of a story. And they're writing their own land acknowledgements. And they're like, they're learning things that they may not have learned otherwise. You know, the Bearing Grounds, you know, they're learning about the foster care system. And so you have like, you know, that whatever, however many books that one story is sold, but like, you know, you have like tens of thousands of kids who I get to talk to, and I get to teach them about something really important, you know, and it's a fantasy story. But so it's like an everyday thing. I'm really blessed to be able to see that. I'm really blessed to be able to be in the position that I'm in, to be able to see that every day with kids. But like, I'm all about building community, you know, so I work very hard, and wherever I go, first of all, to be authentic, but also to be kind and to build community and try to make connections. And I saw that, you know, more than any time else last year with Ontario, when they banned my book, you know, and so the Durham District School Board, when they banned The Great Bear, I remember thinking, like, I was really upset by it. Like, it really hurt. It was difficult. It was a stressful couple of months. But what was amazing about it was that it was like students, parents, teachers, writers, all calling and writing letters and emailing. And I thought, that's community, you know, and I love that we have that, you know. I love that we can like rely on each other in that way, and we should rely on each other that way, because we're all in this, you know. And I feel like when you see something you can do, you ought to do it, you know. And so I had a lot of people, you know, stand with me there. But I think it wasn't just me. I mean, anybody would have stood with anybody. I feel like just because like kids need books, you know, and if you take a book from a kid's hands, you're I think you're insulting a lot of people by doing that, you know. And so you know, The Great Bear was just an example. I remember thinking though that I told my publisher when it happened, I was glad that it happened to me, because I did have a bit of a platform where I could, like, you know, cause a stink. And hopefully the outcome for me was hopefully that now that I had done it, that other writers would know how to go about it when it happened to them. Because the thing is, it will happen again. And what they don't see though is that when it happens, more people buy the book. So
Like, how many people were?
Yeah. So, but it's all about community. Like, you know, stories bring people together more than anything else. And that's why you see, like, with Indigenous literature, like Wob's too, like Wob has written like 4 or 5 great books as well. And you know, if you look at the bestseller list every week, a lot of them are Indigenous writers, and it's not just Indigenous people reading them, it's everybody. And we're all learning something. And the more we learn about each other, the better off we'll all be.
So you're like a big book fan?
Yes. And music too.
Cause,
Arts.
cause I was thinking about this and you reminded me, I was thinking about it on the way here. And so thank you. It's like, and this is very general, but I think it's worth pointing out is, and you just said, you can take a book from a kid's hand, okay? If you take a book from a kid's hand, where you're picturing a physical book, right? You know what's amazing is like all the things that have happened in the past 15 years in terms of technology and the way we deliver content, how we consume content. The actual physical book is never gonna go away, like ever, right? Like there's the first two questions, right? Y'all are like the next generation and you have a physical, it's amazing to me, actually. It really is, right? And like even people like, they're fine with reading a lot of their content online or on their phone, but nothing compares to the actual book. It's amazing. It's truly cool.
It's magic, you know.
It is.
I remember a few years ago, my publisher at the time, and still my publisher, Highwater, they were preparing for like the onset of like ebooks.
Right.
So they were amending all these contracts. And they were like, you know, preparing for like this big shift. Never happened.
Unbelievable.
Never happened. You know, like my royalties every year is like 1% maybe is like ebooks. It's all like physical and audio.
It's amazing.
But like, yeah,
It's so
physical books are never going away. They're magic.
And for some of us, that's like the only, like those are the only decorations I have in my house, if that makes sense. Like, I'm not saying it properly, but I'm being serious. As in like, it's like, I don't know, like, it's a bookshelf. How awesome is that? No? I don't know. That's it. Like, that's literally, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
What is something, I remember a couple of years ago, this, I don't know if you, so you can share as much as you A, want to, B, are legally allowed to.
Okay.
What is something going on career-wise that we don't know about in this room? Whether it's in the works, whether it's, there's been meetings, how much you allowed to say, because I find that stuff, I don't know about y'all, but like, I mean, even like, Wab, you'd be the same, you two, I'm going to write a book, it's a lot different than you released a book. A lot of us like this, right? Like that, that's huge. Like you did it, okay? So all that stuff that goes on for a book to actually be released and stuff is fascinating. But then because like, so your name starts, like your name pops up on people's radar that wouldn't normally find out about you because you start getting these awards, right? And then your book starts selling. And so people go, okay, what's this? Well, then people hit you up and discussions start happening. So is there anything that you're allowed to share with us?
Yeah. So, I mean, I have like probably like, you know, 7 or 8 books on the go. So there's like, some of the ones I'm most excited about are, the Memekwesewak is like, you know, we have 6 books in that series. So I'm working on book. We just finished book 4. So that's coming out in October this year. And that I'm really excited about that one. And again, like that book is a book that's, when you read about it, hopefully, you know, for me, I connected it to the history of the Otak people. So you get to read about that and hopefully learn a little bit about history on the east coast of Canada. And then On the Trapline, when we were alone, I look at them as almost like spiritual kind of sequels, like sisters, those books. And so the trilogy, the last kind of that trilogy, I just wrote last year. So that one will come out. I won't come out for about 3 or 4 years, but I'm really excited about that.
I can't plan tomorrow. No, but can we stop there for a second? Cause like, see, I don't know that, so there's a finished, we're talking about the trilogy?
Well, the manuscript is
right.
Yeah, but the illustrations aren't. Sorry.
This is fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, the picture books is like the bulk of the work is the illustrations. So I'll write it for like a month maybe, illustrations take like 7 months, 6 months to do, so.
It's so
Yeah.
neat. I didn't know any of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, like On the Trapline I wrote in 2018, and it came out 2021. So yeah, so you're looking pretty far ahead in the books that you have. But I have like adult literature coming out. I have a memoir on mental health, which I'm gonna start working on, and picture books, middle grade. The thing I was most excited for is the imprint that I started with Penguin Random House.
Yeah, so what's that? Yeah, tell us about that.
So I got to like be the editorial director of this new imprint, and I know the name of it and the design and everything, and no one knows that yet, which is kind of fun. But what it is, it's like how I look at it is, I'm here because of some people. I'm here because of like Tom King, and I'm here because of Thompson Highway, and I'm here because of Lee Miracle and Beatrice Culleton, and so I feel like Maria Campbell, and like I feel like now, even like with Wob and me and Sheree Demline and Lisa Elliott and like everyone who's fighting success today, one of the things that we have to do is make sure that we do the same thing. That we also open doors for new and emerging writers to do what we do, because we won't be here forever. So starting this imprint was a long dream of mine, and Sheree's a good friend of mine, and she couldn't go and do the whole thing with me, but so I started it last year, and we have a couple of people signed already, and I'm really excited because it's just like it's all Indigenous writers,
Unreal.
all Indigenous books, all Indigenous illustrators. We're gonna have a mentorship
I
program.
was just gonna say, you also
Yeah.
are a mentor. Just
Yeah,
that's amazing.
yeah. I'm working with like Indigenous editors as much as we can, and just like make it a fully.
Awesome.
I think it's like the first ever like large house Indigenous imprint in Canada, and I'm really excited to be a part of that. Yeah, Hard Drum and HarperCollins in the States is an example of how it's been done already, but Canada's the first one.
So cool.
Mhm.
So cool.
Yeah.
Everyone, I don't want you to miss your opportunity for a question, because I think we're coming up on time. Is anyone feeling? Yes, nice job.
Oh, and we will get to you in just one moment. We just have one person online who's been
Oh,
working
okay.
on it for a while.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of excitement around book four, as you can imagine. One person was just wondering.
Was it that news hit?
It hit pretty
Awesome.
hard, yeah. So there was one reader who just mentioned, with that in mind, from your Barren Ground group, the Barren Ground book, would you answer whether or not Misawa was based off a real place and talk about the inspiration quickly?
No, I made it up. I mean, Misawa is a Cree word. It means all that is, and it's just a village I made up. But that the village for me is based on, for the most part, like traditional ways of living of the Cree people, specifically. But as the world expands, you include different groups of Indigenous people that are represented with the animal beings in this world, and so it's just a way for me to represent like the really beautiful, rich, ways in which Indigenous people have lived in this country for so long, since time immemorial, and so that's this world, the North Country, Misawa, is just an example of like our beautiful communities. So I'm in a way I made it up, in a way I didn't. Yeah.
Cool.
I was just wondering what advice you had for young writers, or for yourself when you were younger, if you could go back in time, and just practical or otherwise, how young writers could get their work published, or what they could do to begin that journey.
There's a few things. I mean, the first thing would be just write all the time, and not only just like write all the time, but be bold in your choices in what you write. So challenge yourself to try everything, and the more you try everything, the better you'll get at developing voice and developing skill. So if you look at my catalog of books, picture books and graphic novels and middle grade, YA, memoir, literary fiction, fantasy, all I do all that because I have something to say and I want to reach an audience with what I have to say, but I also want to get better, and I feel like the harder you try, the more you challenge yourself, the better you're going to get. I might say like, I want to be the best writer out there. I'll never be the best writer out there. There's so many good writers out there, but if I'm not trying to be the best, I'm not trying hard enough, So that's how I've kind of tried to work, at least approach my career. And that's a lot of advice I give young writers is to write a lot, but also write a lot of different things too. And I feel like reading is very important too. So like read to learn. So like I said to Ace earlier, I have a lot of mentors. A lot of them are alive, a lot of them are dead, because I read classical literature, I read modern literature. I learn a lot from writers, and so that's been very important for me too, like to find mentorship in the books that I read. And I think the last thing is like, you have to figure out what you want to say. You have to be passionate about what you want to say and what you want to write about. The more you tap into your passion, the more you'll get out of yourself. And the more what you want to say will reach the readers that you want to say it to. So I feel like those are the best, quick little advice I can give new writers. But I think like above everything else, it's like, you're right to help people, right? To create some kind of change or to build a community. I mean, that's what the power of story is, And so you're doing that, I feel like, I don't know, you're really tapping into what makes stories so special.
Awesome. You want to, last word to you.
I will close things out with a note from Dylan.
I like the settings in this book. There's a lot of design on the backgrounds in each page. If you look at the first page, I really like the lily pads and how you kind of made the people in the water. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks, Dylan. I appreciate it.
Everyone, that was so fun. Thank you all so much for coming. David, you're amazing. Thank you.
Thanks, Ace. Thank you. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, love, thank you. Love you, man. And then so, this is the actual last question, but how did it, like, honestly feel when, so you grow up, right? You write this, you start writing these books. How did it feel? Because you're gonna do this right away. The first time someone actually wanted their book signed.
I remember when I was a kid, I went home to my mom. It was like in grade 3. By the way, my kindergarten teacher is here.
I know. That is one of the most adorable things, and you wouldn't believe, I think you would. Can I?
Yeah.
Quote, he remembers you like it was yesterday, the best kindergarten teacher you could ever wish for. And that is so cute that you're here.
Yeah.
So cute.
That's why teachers are so special.
Yeah.
Yeah. Teachers are so special. Anyway, so I went home to my mom that day and I told my mom, I remember telling my mom I wanted to be a writer. And I've only ever wanted to be one thing in my life. And I think it's just like all of this is, I still can't believe people come to read my books. Like I still can't believe like this stuff happens.
Yeah.
Like, so it's just like all of this, like a dream come true all the time. So yeah, no, it's amazing. So that, signing my first book is like, I still feel excited with, 1,000 book.
Sure.
It's always, it's just special, all of it's special. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much. Now John's gonna just read the phone book and it's gonna be good.
Bill, thank you both so much. That was truly fantastic. So rather than subject anyone to an extended reading, I do have some exciting procedural notes to wind things down. But first I will point out that Stephanie from Tundra Books will be distributing copies of this book to you all. You don't have an obligation to buy it, although you really should. It's a beautiful book. All we'll ask is that you do hold it up dramatically while David also poses dramatically in front of you and takes an image of them. Immediately following that, we will transport David over to the signing table where he will very happily sign copies of the books for you. We have this book here, and if you do have a copy in hand already, just hold on to it. That'll be fantastic. We also have copies of every single other book David has ever written here in the store. So if you're looking for something, just let us know and we can go on the hunt for it. We were thrilled to have all of you here physically, all of you folks watching live online. Thank you all for putting up with my rookie mistake of not turning on the front speaker, because apparently somebody turned that off. So thank you all very much for that. And I'd like to close just by thanking all of you once again for joining us on this climactically unpredictable day. And also express thanks to Tundra Books for publishing this incredible book. Acknowledge the amazing work of Maya McKibbin within its pages. Like, take some time and do look at these illustrations. They are gorgeous and complement the text perfectly. Thank you to Wab for singing. Thank you to Ace for his incredible hosting. And of course, finally, please join me in thanking David A. Robertson.